Let me tell you something. I've got Trish's Orchid Life here with me tonight. Yay! All the way from the good old USA over there. Because, of course, Trish's Orchid Life also has a fantastic indoor grow setup. And I say also, whereas I should exclude myself from that. But she's here with us tonight. And yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the pre-chat now. We were settling in with drinks and snacks. So, hey, it's good to see you. There's a lot of echoing. Okay, I'm just getting a little bit of a feedback from Trish's Orchid Life. Let me take this to the side. I am that silly bubble on the left. Whoops, we don't want that. Got a bit of a rusty thing going on here because it has been a while that I have been live. Circumstances within and beyond my control, but here we are. Now, why can't I hear Trish? Hey, Robert, good to see you. Michael McCarthy, Michelle, it's good to have you here as well. Trish, can you say something? Can I hear you? Maybe? It was working fine behind the scenes.
Hey guys, can you hear
and
me?
She is live with us as well.
And I don't have my fancy collar anymore.
I know, look at that. Look at that. She has stretched her neck like the Maasai tribe do with, or the Bondulu tribe do with their beautiful, beautiful necklaces.
And
but
look,
tonight, it's gone.
You can barely see.
Trend World, it's good to see you. Hello. Drinks. Michelle, it's good to see you. Hand hearts to you. Hey, thank you for coming in. I hope you're doing well. Trend World here, first time. Now, I am on the studio side, so if anybody's coming in from Twitch, well, here we are. So welcome. What we are going to be, there is not supposed to be any echoing at all. So somewhere there is a device that is on and YouTube needs to mute. Because Trish is also watching the side chat in case anybody has any questions for her. And she's hearing an echo. And the first thing that we need to do is mute the YouTube side on Trish's end because I'm not hearing an echo on my end. If you're watching the chat on the side stream, you can go down like any video and mute me. And if you have any questions, ask. This is not something that we could practice beforehand. We needed to go live. But other than that, we had a good little chit chat. We were exchanging canapes. And I have warmed up considerably. Anyway, Julie's Orchids, Orchid Ninja Julie Sarmit.
Hey, Julie.
It's good to see you. Hey. Right. So what we're going to do tonight, in my case, and good afternoon,
Oh,
good
Michelle,
morning.
what kind of chocolate?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, chocolate always helps with a migraine. I hope so. Anyway, what we're going to do tonight is discuss, which I hope will be maybe the next guest or the following guests will be going to talk about other grow spaces. But I would like to talk about grow spaces in general because indoor grow spaces are fabulous, and I would like to really focus in on you have a separate room, or you are a windowsill grower, or you have a certain setup where you're not necessarily in a conservatory or a greenhouse. So I'm steering away from the controlled environment, which would include greenhouses. I'm talking more about what we have done with our setups to make our orchids grow while we live with them, as opposed to them being in a separate space. That includes a spare room. So I'm not trying to veer away from just being on the living room or the windowsill, but the challenges and the advantages are the same. So let me just see. I am talking in general, and you're welcome to pipe in at any specific time. And Trish is still hearing everything on repeat. So there is a device overlap somewhere. There is a device overlap. Sorry if you guys are hearing some dead air while we figure this little technical thing out. We are the boomers. Live streaming. Switch your mic on. Your mic was off at the moment. You were muted. Okay. Is that
Okay,
better?
so now it's on.
And can you hear me?
It is.
And can you hear an
It is
echo?
on. I have it on now.
And have you got an echo?
I can hear you.
You shouldn't have an echo. I can keep
Not
talking.
now.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. Sorted. Sorted.
That's
Anyway,
good.
let me, I did do the title with a little bit of mystery. I know, my bad. But now that you know that my special guest here tonight is Trish's Orchid Life, what I'm going to do is find her channel. I'm going to put her channel link into the description. And if you don't know who Trish's Orchid Life is, you might just want to check her out. Not only is she an orchid ninja, but she has a setup that many people would be envious of. But how did she get to the setup that she is today? And I'm going to leave the floor for the time being with Trish's Orchid Life for her to explain how she started her setup. Maybe we can get into how long it took for her to get her setup to what it is now. Did it happen all at once, or was it a progress over time? And let's just hear from her what she has to say about how she got to what you see behind her right now. Trish, if you don't mind sharing with us.
And there, and all of that. So,
Surrounded.
yes. Okay. Just so you guys know, I am still hearing a little bit of an echo. So if I stop talking, it's because I'm hearing what has already been said, like right now.
Keep going. You keep going. You've
Okay.
got the
Okay.
floor.
It's very weird hearing myself talk while I'm talking. So I've been growing. Okay. I've been growing orchids since I was probably 16. I've gotten my first orchid 16 years old, 15, 16. It was a phal, just like everyone else. And I saw it in the store. It was pink. I love pink. And my mom bought it for me. And then hold on, I gotta do this. I can't. Okay. And then from there, from the time I was 16 until I graduated college in 23 years old, I had 50 phals that I grew at my mom's house. Because the college I went to was right up the street. So even though I lived in the dorm, I would come home every day and take care of my little orchids. And I basically gave them tap water. It's in Louisiana. And even though the water in Louisiana is not very good because of the clay in the ground, it's very, very chemicalized. They did fine. I was not fertilizing back then. I was not worried about lights, nothing like that. Then I got married and we went to Germany in Stuttgart. We were there for a while. There I grew phalaenopsis on the windowsill because my windowsills were pretty wide. At that time, I had probably about 100 phals, and a lot of them were the same. They were all no IDs. I wasn't really into like the novelties or the summers or anything like that at the time. And then from there, I ended up having to give all those away because you can't bring them back with you. In addition to the orchids, I also had house plants. As you can see, I have a snake plant right there. I also like house plants. And once we got stateside, we were in Louisiana, which I loved growing orchids there. The humidity, the heat, I could grow them outside, I could grow them inside. And I miss that now that I'm in Colorado. I can basically only grow inside. I did grow some outside last year, and they did really well. So I will be growing some more outside. As far as the collection I currently have, started off with 3 grocery store phals, and then I bought seedlings, not realizing what seedlings were. And this Cattleya right here that you can see in the background was 2019. This is her first blooming. Seedlings do take a little bit of a different care. And gradually over time, I've collected more Oncidiums, Cattleyas. The majority are still phal as phalaenopsis. I do have the summers, novelties. I've got a couple of dendrobiums, Miltoniopsis, which are in the Oncidium group. I have one bulbophyllum that I bought, shouldn't have, but we're going to make it through. And I think that's it, Nina.
Okay. So,
and I do grow in different media as well. So I do have them mounted in leca, in bark, in moss, in mixtures.
So tell me, let's just say when you moved into this property, as we know you now with your YouTube channel, when you started making videos, did you start with one light stand? Did you start with one rack, or did you just start filling your windowsills in and then your collection grew, so you needed to figure out more infrastructure? How did this evolve? Because many people might start with an orchid collection, they've got everything on a windowsill, and then and then they kind of think, how about we, okay, we're having some mic issues here with Trish's, yeah. How are we going to get the resolve the situation with the headphones and the mic? Trish's orchid.
I wonder, Nina, if I log out and log back in.
Okay, you can do that.
Yeah, let me try that. I'll be right back.
Okay, I hear you. Got it. Okay, so here's the thing. When I started, and I wanted to bounce off Trish's experiences with mine. When I started and I started to bring in my collection, I'm going to have a video coming out that is called Then and Now. And this is not about us just buying orchids and getting the bug and getting, carried away, and suddenly we don't have any more space. Clearly,
that's better.
All right, awesome. Clearly, we do get a little bit ahead of ourselves when we get the orchid bug and we're purchasing orchids, but there's a natural flip switch in our head that says, I can take care of more orchids because I've got more time. I can take care of more orchids because I've still got space available. And then there's an overflow. And that is when we start to fill in spaces that are a little bit darker, maybe not in the same room, etc. And that's where I want to go tonight. And then get into the nitty-gritty of the experience and the flow of the experience of how an indoor grow space starts to become the environment that makes our orchids happy. So I'm sorry for the little bit of the jump headache start while we work on technology, etc. But there is a purpose behind this stream, is to get some feedback, bounce over some ideas. And well, Trish, you're back on. Go ahead, take it away.
I am. Okay, so how did this collection start? Like I said, I got the 3 orchids. We actually purchased them the night we moved in. We got the key that morning, moved stuff in, and that night the girls and I were going to clean. I had this thing I have to clean before I put things away. And we had to go to the store, get some more cleaning supplies. And I saw an orchid, and then Sarai saw an orchid, and I was like, oh, let's get this one too. So we just had the 3 orchids. I had a coffee table, a big square coffee table, and I set them on there. I was like, oh, they're pretty. And then watching YouTube orchid channels as you do, I was like, oh, I like that one. Let me get a seedling. I'm not reading on seedlings. This is before I did any research, which if you are going to grow in your home, please do the research before you buy seedlings.
Trish, Trish, can I stop you there? Can you check your cable? Can you check your microphone connection to the port?
Yep.
Because we are still getting static now from your end. The echo is gone, but there's like it sounds as if there is like a loose connection, loose cable or something.
Is this better?
Nope.
Huh. Because it's in there nice and tight. I wonder if it's because I'm moving it around maybe.
What if you took it off and unplugged it and
That's what I
spoke through
did.
the mic? Okay, unplug it and talk to us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there's still some static.
Because I'm showing full bars. Everything looks good on this side.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me see.
That
Now?
keep talking.
Can you hear me now? How is it now?
There's still some static.
Huh.
And I can hear myself.
I see that's what I was hearing earlier.
Okay, so put the headphones back in and let's see if we can deal with this. That is a shame. I wonder if we're in too close proximity of some kind of a device.
To me, let's see. Let me move my phone.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a pain.
Oh no, bro, you're not being a pain. I don't want static. It's irritating. What about now?
It's not going away. That is so bizarre.
That is weird. Because my phone is an iPhone and my computer is an HP, so it's not like my phone connects to my computer.
Right. Have you what is that? What is that? Michelle's comment just distracted me. There's a spy balloon flying over there.
You know what? There might be. Let me look. Let's see.
No, but
I don't see one.
It's as if there's I don't know how to put my finger on it. I mean, I can listen through it, but it's as if there is a problem. Like we lose some of your conversation, and it was bizarre because while you and I were talking, getting settled in the background, there was no issues at all.
At all.
And now that we're live, there is a problem. Now I am on Wi-Fi. It is howling.
I am also on Wi-Fi.
It is blowing a hoolie outside, and I can't connect to the main thing because I'm not going to go into details as to why not. But yeah. Anyway, if it's not such a big pain in the derriere, can we try and continue? I don't know if people are open for that. We just give it a go and see if the system settles in. General question. And
I do talk fast, so I will slow down just a little bit because I do tend to blah, really quickly when I get excited. So I'll slow down.
It's not the speed of your speech. It's something in the line. There's a problem with the connection somehow, which really, really sucks because we were working on this live for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right. And like you said at the beginning, nothing was staticky.
Right.
When it was just
now here. Hey Josh. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave it up to every single participant whether they want to be here or not. We're going to proceed as if there is no issues, and I'm going to just say it one more time. I do apologize for whatever is going on that we can't sort out at the moment. The information is still going to be relevant, and if need be, we will do this all again. We'll see how it goes. I do not want to annoy anybody. That is not the intention of live streams like this. This should be fun, interactive, and not a pain. Anyway, so
unfortunately, Michelle, I don't have another set of headphones, and like I said, the laptop is not an Apple product, so my Apple products won't work with it. Matter of fact, my wireless microphone that I use when I do recording, I was trying to connect to the laptop, but because it is also made by an Apple company, it won't connect either. So I am so sorry, guys. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. So the question is, I don't know if you just answered that because I was distracted off to the right by the four-legged peoples. Trend World says, "Can you try on your phone?" I know you hate that.
You know what? Let me try it. Let's see what we got, guys. Hold on. I'm gonna mute you real quick I get everything set up, okay?
Okay. All right. So anyway, while she does that, let me go with the flow with what the intention of this live is based on my perspective. Okay. So what happened was when I started building my collection as it is now, what happened was I had, hey, Lisette Carlson, it's good to see you. So I had an order come in, and you will see the before and after, then and now video coming out eventually. But I had a collection, I had a desk, and everything was lined up against the glass pane. And I had plenty of orchids, and more were coming. And it was very, very quickly clear to me that I was occupying a space that I could build off of. The question was, how was I going to do that with my orchids getting as much light as possible? And I bring them in during the winter. But as it is an indoor grow space, we have to always consider our light levels. So the first challenge for me was, how much light can I then provide my orchids in order to also be a little bit more on the, let's say, cost-effective side of things? Meaning, I painted all the walls white. I only have a south-facing window on the west side, which, although being south-facing, you would think it gets a lot of light. But during the summers, the sun angle is so high in the sky that I don't get any direct sun into my grow space during the summer. So these things need to be taken into consideration when you're looking at your space and what you have available. If your orchid collection were to grow and you wanted to expand on the space that you have while still making it a visually appealing place to be in, to spend time in, maybe have your desk in. Mine is a dining room. And my intention was the dining room table is in the middle, chairs all around, shelves on the left and right. And as my daughter said back in the day, Mom, we can have our dinners and lunches here and be surrounded by your orchids. And it was a beautiful plan. And that makes sense. So the next step was, apart from painting the walls white, how am I going to get light into a long and narrow space, which is mine? My grow space is not a bay window. A bay window is a fantastic area for a grow space indoors, whether you sometimes have the benefit of taking your orchids outdoors or not. So if you have a room that is quite bright at the front, but you want to expand and move the functionality into the back, then what is it that you can do in order to make that happen? I put a mirror right at the far end of the wall. Okay, we're still getting an echo. Are we echo free?
No, I can't hear. Let's see.
So I put a mirror right at the far end of the wall. Not that it would actually have any sunlight bouncing off behind it, but white walls left and right, mirror at the back. Eventually there would be, like, you know, a light source in the back, even though it's not much. It was only marginal, but a mirror placed in certain areas that can bounce off. Low budget production. Perdona.
Let me turn my trying to figure out how to turn it around, guys.
Okay. So find your corners. Find your dark corners. And you can see that as your light moves across the room. Strategically place mirrors. You don't even need any artificial lights to begin with. And if your shelves are like mine in my grow space, then you can also use what I do, not just the stainless steel rack, which was one of the last acquisitions that I actually made. My stainless steel racks came right at the end when my orchid collection exploded. So let me just share a screen with you here and show you that I used stainless steel shelving. I hope that you can see that here to the left and the right where the phalaenopsis are. And whatever happens, even though there is a dark space underneath, stainless steel is a great reflectant, never mind the rack itself in the middle. So pretend that you're seeing a dining table going through the middle of my the shelves on the left and right, and you can still see my dining room set, my buffet there on the right, which is now also an orchid shelf. But anyway, so the idea is look at your space, think of the 4 seasons, and never mind whether you can take your orchids outside or not. This is what you want to look at. If you've got long and narrow, try and get as much light into the back of the room, whether you're going to have orchids there or not. Any reflection is great. Paint your walls white. And if you have a reflective color, if you want to go even more fancy, go into metallic mother of pearl. That'll work as well. And then, of course, you can see on the top, I've got, nice snazzy halogen spotlights up there. They were not there for the purposes of, excuse you, my mouse is being a little bit excited tonight as well. We're live again after a long time. But you see, the halogen lights are only there for decorative purposes, even though they would highlight or give some light to my phalaenopsis. I don't use them, though, because they are not spreading light out. They are more of a pinpoint, directional light. But what you see on the left above my silver shelf to the left, you can see that I've got very, very flat shop lights, and flat is the key here because you want to make sure that your space is flexible enough when it comes to being able to accommodate tall, high orchids as opposed to short ones. So the short ones can always be propped up with an extra, let's say, pot or something underneath if they need more light, and you can raise them up on the shelf to give them more light. What you can't do is, once you have your shelf up too high, is to then lower it, and you've limited the opportunities and the options you have in order to use a space like this very, very effectively. Yes, Sandy, a mirror, I mentioned that earlier, and I have in the far back of my space, what we don't see, but behind me from this image, I have a mirror that actually helps a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. It's just my room is very, very deep, and you can see the terrace door is not very, very big. And especially in summer, you think that it's permanently dark in my space because the angle of the sun is up. So depending on your hemisphere, if you're around the equator, hey, lucky you. You might want to bring cool growers into a space like this and consider their light requirements. Everything else should be outside growing al fresco. And if not, let me know in the replay, in the comments, in the chat, why do you not have your orchids outdoors growing al fresco if you're around the tropics, especially if you're at sea level, okay? So let me put Trish back up on volume. Let's see which one we've got going. Go ahead, Trish.
Okay, is this better?
I'm still hearing an echo from you. There is no more static, but we're still getting an echo.
Thing is, now I can't hear you.
Okay.
Let me check my audio.
All right. Your audio was fine on New Year's Eve. This is so bizarre, you guys. This is so bizarre. I don't want to frustrate anybody. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Yes, I can.
Guys.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
Tell me if you have.
This is.
but you're on the StreamYard software. You're on the Restream software, yeah? Or are you on YouTube? Are we back? I can't hear you, Trish. Are you back? I've got you twice. Sorry, peoples. I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I've got Trish in the studio twice, so I'm trying to toggle which one is the sound.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you with a crackle.
Okay, so that's on the laptop. And when I'm on my phone, I can't. You can hear me, but I don't think. But I can't hear anything.
Okay, so what did you do on New Year's Eve? It was fine on New Year's Eve. Your sound. Okay.
With the headphones.
Okay. Right. So shall we just continue?
Have any ideas?
Well, here we have. Michael said right at the beginning, well, earlier on, it seems like a compression issue because the video is a bit pixelated at times.
Okay.
Which I see a clear screen where I'm at. Okay, Michael McCarthy says we're just going to power through it.
Okay, I'm just going to leave it on the laptop then. Because
okay.
With the phone, I can't hear you. I can see where my mic is picking up, but I can't hear you. Okay, hold on. Let me get that extra out. Can you still hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can.
Okay, because we just take this off a little bit. All right. I don't even know where we were, but I'm going to bounce off what you were saying as far as painting your walls. Because the walls, when I first moved in here, was like a tannish color, kind of not dark, but it was a cool brown. And so I did paint my walls. They're not white. It's a light sky blue to brighten it up. I have this east-facing window over here that let's see if I can just turn it this way. That east-facing window is the window that I depended on for the first year of growing my orchids. Everything sat in front of this window. The grow shelf I did not get until the December, our first Christmas year, because I had to move all of those plants out of the way to put the tree in front of the window. So the first year I did get the it's a 5 shelf, just the metal one like what you have there on the picture, and I did get the Barina lights, but each one of the shelves only had a set of 2 on each shelf, and that was just to kind of give them the extra light since the tree was going to be blocking the natural light coming through. Again, the first year I did not have timers. I just kind of manually did it when I got up in the morning. I work anywhere from 12 to 14 hours a day, so I would have my husband turn them off at some time. I do try to mimic this shelf with what's going on in this window. So if I see that it's getting dark and these lights are still on, I will leave them on probably for maybe an hour longer and then manually turn them off. Currently, they're on a timer to match now. The timer I got last spring, so 2022. These are on a timer to match what's going on outside. So if sunrise is at 6:30, starts at 6:30, and sunset is at 7:30, then that's kind of what this one does within a 30-minute period. I have 2 kind of spotlight grow lights, like this one up in the window, one here or in the corner. I have one here, and then I have one kind of off camera where you can't see. to kind of help, because those are kind of the darker areas, even though they're right by the window.
Wait with that question, Trish. Wait
Okay.
with that question. I'm just highlighting it so that Trent can see we see it.
Okay.
So my question is, when you started, you had a windowsill, you had no shelving, and your collection grew.
Right.
But you had already pinpointed, you'd already figured out your dark areas of the room because of what you already had, yes?
Correct. So my windowsill is not really big enough to put plants on, so that's why I had the coffee table in front of it.
Right.
But what I did, I'm an early bird. Okay, I'm usually up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So what I do while I'm drinking my coffee is I watch to see how the light hits through the window, and that's kind of what I did. And then I was noticing that the sides weren't quite getting the same amount of light that right in front of the window is, which, I mean, that makes sense because they're not right in front of the window. I downloaded this stupid app on my iPhone initially back in 2019, a light meter reader, in a cheap way, trying to figure it out. But it was enough for me to figure out that it was an extreme difference, and that the plants that I had there probably weren't the right ones. So that's when I added, initially they were just regular lights, just regular LED energy savers that I had in the house, 75 watt.
But we're talking, you already had orchids in that corner, or just regular house plants?
No, I had some orchids because I had I had tables all along here, so I did have some orchids on either side in the shaded area, along with houseplants.
Okay, so when we're talking about how you discovered how the light influences your space at the time, it took you a season? Did it take you like the spring through summer through fall to understand it? What was your time frame when you realized these are my dark corners? This is where I need more light? Because what I'm trying to help people out here is they see a setup and it's like, oh my goodness, I need all of that stuff. Well, hold on, maybe you don't.
No.
So
no, you don't want to start
building blocks.
Yeah. So you don't want to start buying, investing in grow lights and all that stuff right away. So I moved into this house in July of 2018. So from July 2018 to the spring of 2019, I was kind of watching the light, and then spring of 2019 through that growing.
Okay, I think maybe she got disconnected. I'm still here, guys, but we have a disconnection. She bounced off the studio. Maybe this is what we needed, and she'll come back and things will be all clear. This can sometimes happen with a streaming software, that if the connection's a bit dodgy, there's only so many frames that go through at the recipient's end. I have full frames, everything's green. We are not dropping any frames from my side of the stream, so hopefully she'll come back and she'll come back stronger. But where we were at.
Guys, my computer so I had to plug it in.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry.
And the sound is crystal clear.
Perfect. All right. Yay.
And while you were away for that stint, I said, she's going to come back, and I bet you she's going to come back stronger. And here she is. So let me get this picture out of the way and bring her back. Awesome.
All right. So from 2019 from March of 2019 to March of 2020 is when I started kind of moving things and kind of watching the light again. Okay, this one, if I put this one here, it'll get direct sunlight for 2 hours in the morning and maybe an hour at night. Because with the east facing window, obviously I get most of my sun in the morning. And then, like I said, this was bought in 2019, December of 2019 to put in there. And the grow lights were simply because once I turn my light off during the day in the wintertime, it's actually really dark everywhere except for right here in front of the window. So I needed to, and I learned that from the winter before, that these are my dark spots. So it took almost 1.5 years of moving things around and kind of watching where the light is for me to figure out where I needed to add the extra little spotlights.
All right. And how did your collection grow at the time, bit by bit, so that you then thought, okay, I need more light? Or did you think, no, it's good the way it is, I need more light even for what, just for what I have?
No, so my collection grew gradually. I bought maybe 5 plants here, 1 plant there, 2 plants there. I didn't do what some people, I know there are some people that go and they buy like I'm going to use you for an example. You've grown orchids for practically your entire life. So when you were getting this collection together, you bought in bulk because you kind of knew what you were doing. I didn't know what I was doing other than with phals.
Okay.
So I would buy 1 or 2 Cattleya seedlings, see how I did with those, see what light worked with those. And I would buy 1 or 2 oncidiums, which all of my oncidiums, except for I think 2, I've bought at my local Trader Joe's. Right. or Nick's Garden Center. So they're all local. But as far as getting them all at one time, no, it gradually grew. I started getting other things besides phalaenopsis towards the beginning of 2019. I think it was like in February, March of 2019 that I started adding outside of just phals.
Okay. So basically, like anybody that would start to set up their grow space and start to learn about their dark spots, this, that, and the other, and what they want to add to the collection based on the space, you did exactly what anybody would do in that situation. Try this, try that one, get a seedling, figure that one out, and then what compelled you to buy a rack? And how did you place the rack? Why did you put it where it was? Was it strategic? Was it the only space? You know, was it something that you had in mind, or did it just happen?
So this is not what I wanted. Aesthetically, I don't like this because it is in my living room, which is main house.
Right.
My home was built in 1949. The homes back then didn't have big spaces. So my living area, or as my husband calls it, my jungle, is not conducive for a lot of things.
It's quaint.
So I went to Lowe's, and initially I wanted a wooden, almost like open bookshelf, floating shelves on the wall with my orchids. And I was like, no, that's going to cost too much. And at the time, the plan was they were just going to stay on here until after Christmas, and then they were going to go back on the coffee table.
Right.
Well, after Christmas, and we took the tree down, I moved this shelf or this racking, whatever, in front of the window. And I put all of my orchids on it.
Okay.
Like every orchid I had, I put it on there. Realized that wasn't a good idea because some of the orchids were getting way too much light from direct sun in the morning. I lost about 15 seedlings altogether that season.
Oh my God.
Just because I thought I had given it time. I knew what I was doing by then. I'd done it for a year. I knew what I was doing. No, I had them too close to the window because even though my house is heated, the window and in front of the window is still going to be cooler than the rest of the further in you go into the room. I didn't take that into account.
Okay, let me stop you there. This is important when we're looking at a grow space and what is available to us, okay? We're starting to flow into understanding. We've figured out light, sort of ish. Light is a moving object, okay? It changes all the time, and that's why we call it an orchid shuffle. Things have to happen, even in a grow space, depending. But this is important if you're starting to get into growing orchids and you've got your orchids in front of a nice window, is to understand that while something is happening indoors, we are expecting that the glass panes, everything else will sort of balance out and temper down the heat, etc., from the outdoors, from the glass panes. So continue. This is super important.
So as you know, Nina, I just had my windows replaced yesterday. Mm-hmm. And the windows that we got are specifically designed for Colorado. We're a mile above sea level. And anyway, they're supposed to be specifically made for Colorado. They're supposed to have like extra UV blockage, all that stuff. So this season, it will be interesting to see how the temperature at the window reflects as far as the rest of the house.
Uh-huh.
So that is something like all day today I've been going over and seeing, is it cool? Because before I could feel a draft because the
Right.
person we bought the house from, they kind of did a quick job on replacing the windows. And a year after we moved in, I started feeling a draft come through, which I believe is part of the reason why I lost some of the orchids, is because I didn't notice that. It wasn't something I thought to look for.
Right.
During the New Year's Eve live stream, you guys had mentioned that perhaps my hibiki was getting too cold.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, because it's far enough away. Well, come to find out, between me misting my mounts up here and the leaves getting wet, I was actually getting frost on the inside of my window that I hadn't noticed. So the hibiki probably was getting cold damage. So those are the things that if you're going to grow on a windowsill or near a window, like I said, mine aren't on a windowsill, but they're very close to the window. Watch for at least a week or so, like every season, like what is that window doing?
Exactly. It's a microclimate. It's a microclimate in its own right. And it can be suitable for some orchids. For example, if the conditions, if your windows hadn't been changed, or let's say in my case with my current situation, my glass might be nice and warm based on the angle of the sun during the winter, but the draft in the evenings will creep through because I'm in a very, very old property that is not insulated. And the draft will cause a completely different circumstance and climate. So anybody listening to this and thinking, well, I never thought of this, just know that it's not a threat. If your orchids are doing fine, then none of this applies to you. But it is something to be extremely mindful of as the seasons go. If you are in an environment like North Southern Hemisphere where we have seasonal changes, that these things do have an effect on orchids that are grown on the windowsill or close to. We are not even talking about radiator heat, none of that. If everything is comfy cozy and yet your windows are starting to cool down a bit, that can make a difference between what you think to be happening during the day as opposed to when you're all nice snug tucked up in bed at night. So just a thought as you figure out your grow space. And now, if your collection isn't growing, we can stop the live stream right here. But the idea being, how does a grow space evolve? And it's never a set and defined space. There's always movement. Go ahead, Trish.
Hey, Yoshi, and I want to kind of add to the whole, when you're setting it up, when you're putting your orchids or houseplants or any live plant, be aware of where your vents are. If you have, what is it called? AC, central heating and air conditioning. Be mindful where your vents are and where they're blowing, because my vents in my home are they're on the wall, but they're on the floor. So they're on the wall. So they blow up. Whereas a lot of homes now have the vents in the ceiling and they blow down. If you have your orchids, or since we're talking about orchids, if you have your orchids and say it's under a vent and that vent is blowing hot air, it's causing a drying effect. So even though you may be watering and you're like, I don't know why my leaves are drying out, I don't know why, watch where your vents go as well. So there's certain places in the living room and in the other rooms where I have plants, orchids as well, I can't put anything there because of the direction of the airflow. And the airflow is really strong. So I can't even put anything, like I have to be careful how far I put it away because it will dry out the leaves.
Right. So this is part of the thing that we'll maybe get to this in this stream, depending on how we can also answer some questions, which Trend World, I don't want to keep you if you need to be going about your business. So I'm just going to stop and get that question addressed so nobody feels that they need to stick around and, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm holding them hostage here. It is a city bus and nobody needs to stay. So let me just highlight that thing about air, because we were I have some bullet points here that I would like to address, which is super important. It's like the humidity when we talk about cold temperatures, which we did a little bit, and the counter side of that, humidity and hot temperatures. So let's just check. Okay, but let's just check Trend World here. Trend World asked earlier, and I'm going to scroll back up to the follow-up comment that you had. So when the light is high in summer and not blasting the room as much, are phals not getting enough light? I noticed in late summer, early fall, the phals are starting new leaves since they got direct sun. So late summer, early fall.
Where are you growing at?
They are all growing in the south-facing, very bright windows, but
No,
definitely.
what continent? What continent? Like northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere?
Well, definitely in the hemisphere, otherwise his light wouldn't be switching like this. So no matter where he's at, he's got light higher in the sky and lower in the sky based on the season. So here's the thing. Phals will start vegetative growth after a little phase of rest during when it gets too hot for them. All right? So as long as your vegetative growth starts late summer, early fall, it has nothing to do with sunlight. It's the fact that the temperatures are now allowing them to do what they're doing. On top of that, maybe they finished blooming and now the hormones need to start to produce more vegetative growth. Otherwise, they won't bloom again because they need nodes to produce spikes. Okay? So don't think that your phals are not getting enough light during the summer, seeing as the day length will cancel out any kind of, let's say, lesser light, in inverted commas, lesser light. There is more day length in order to counteract what could be lesser light, if that makes sense. Even in the summer, there's always bright shades. Okay. Can you see the chat? Because Trent just said he's growing in New York.
Okay.
And, okay, Orchids by the Lake is talking to Michael. I would say it's a change in par, not temperature. Par? I'm sorry, I'm a golfer. I talk birdies. A par is a missed putt. I don't understand that. I'm sorry. But you're not, phals do not react to direct sun to initiate vegetative growth. Thank you, Michael, for all of us that are not well versed. PAR, I've learned something, photosynthetically active region of light. Okay. Commercial phals or summer bloomers. Michael Wong, welcome to the chat. I appreciate you being here. Commercial phals. What we were discussing just now are commercial phals. The summer bloomers always need a lot more light than commercial phals, whereas if we're going to talk about light, commercial phals can take a lot more light than we give them credit for, but as in both cases, no direct sun. If you can provide the same amount of light for your commercial phalaenopsis as well as your summer bloomers, you're doing great. But in both cases, no direct sun. And I say that from the perspective of southern Spain. I don't care where you are in the world. Some people say morning sun and afternoon sun is fine. But if we're going to make a safe blanket statement, give them the brightest light you can without direct sun. In both cases, you're fine. So there's that. I hope that makes sense. Because bright light doesn't mean direct sun. If I could put my commercial phals on my patio behind a curtain with never touching a lick of sunshine, that is what I would do. And they would get bright shade all the time. I can't guarantee that though, because I get a lot of wind on my patio. And if that curtain goes up, then I'm done. So both kinds of, any kind of phalaenopsis can take a lot of light. Both of them, to be on the safe side, cannot tolerate direct sun, just without burning the leaves. Go ahead, Trish. Sorry.
So I was just going to tell you as far as a bright light. So this, I've got phals hanging here in front of the window. I've got my summer phals under the light. I've also got some on the top shelf here, and there's no extra lighting or anything that goes up there. And I've got.
Be very careful with your movements, lady. You're still healing.
I'm good. I'm going to go to physical therapy, girl. I am good.
I know. I just don't want anything to happen on this stream.
So phal lark song, of course, is in bloom, but this one here, this is the first bloom I've had on her since 2021. And she grows vegetatively, loses leaves, grows, and I put her up there, so they'll still bloom in bright shade.
Right.
So that's, so they do need bright light, but they will bloom in bright shade.
So we're going to go back to what we mentioned earlier when you're checking out your grow space, your living room, and if you want to expand and, add a little bit of infrastructure. Her walls are painted white. My walls are painted white. So keep that in mind as you work with what you've got within your space. White is very, very reflective. And again, Sandy mentioned it as well, and I have it on my back wall. Mirrors will also reflect light. However, be extremely careful with your mirrors, because we know what happens when a ray of sun hits a mirror and becomes just a stream, and we can ignite a fire. So unless you are very, very sure that none of that is going to happen, no direct sun will hit the mirror. It's only a reflector and not a fire hazard. Then mirrors are a great idea, but you do not want direct sun to be blasting on that mirror, because you don't know where that reflectant is going to hit and what the consequences can be. So be very careful, okay? That's just a little disclaimer.
I actually do have a mirror in my living room, a nice big mirror that grabs light from this window as well as the window in the kitchen that reflects back into this area.
Right. Okay, so when we are talking about building on the infrastructure, let's just talk about the investment, okay? So for the first year and a half, you had little to no investment, really, because you bought your plants and you put them in where they could be around the window. Your investment were your plants. Let's just try to stay with orchids. So your orchids were your investment. Mm-hmm. Then your next step was, whoops, after a year and a half, you recognized, oh, there are some dark corners. So your next step was to highlight those corners, right? Mm-hmm. Then as your collection grew and you expanded a little bit with what you wanted to grow, you figured you had a wall space that was available and you wanted it to be decorative. It turned out that wasn't feasible because of the cost factor. So you turned to what we all use, happily, a baker's rack, which also has levels that we can adjust and depending on what we want and the height of our orchids, which is awesome because you can also use a top shelf. So that is what we can see now. However, now you've got more dark space, even though you got your back wall painted white. How did you get to the point of now you need more light? Why? What happened there? Was it because of the angle of the sun based on where you were living, or how did we get to the artificial lighting?
So,
and when? Because now we're a year and a half in to you building your grow space.
So these lights came in last year, 2022.
So that was a year and a half after you started with your plant.
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Okay.
19, 21, 20. Yeah, almost 2 years. I did that because I put a bunch of highlight orchids, your cattleyas, and I did have some of the novelty phals. I'd gotten like a speciosa and a bellina, and I was like, they need more light than what they're getting from the window. So that was initially why I put that. And these lights are only like $15 at Home Depot here in the United States. So I didn't like spend a lot of money on those. And initially they were not on the timer either. So I would, instead of going up and turning them on and off, I would just unplug them every day. And it was mainly for the mounts that I had put on the wall, which are cattleyas mainly, and then the cattleyas that I had put in this corner. because they wouldn't fit on the shelf. So that I bought it specifically for the type of orchids I had in the corner, hoping to get more growth because they weren't growing.
Okay. Okay.
Or I shouldn't say they weren't growing. They were growing. It was just at a very slow pace.
Well, and we know that if we can improve something, that would also,
right.
you know, help them along, because we can have a comparison based on what we see on the internet. You know, we can see that we can actually do with a little bit of investment, give them a little bit more of a boost. And that was your investment to bring some light into the corners. Mm-hmm. So the rack that we see behind you, that then came after 2 years of you?
No, that came after a year.
A year, okay.
Yeah, so we moved in July of 2018, and I bought that in December of 2019, so a little over a year. So I guess, yeah, a year and a half. But it was bought specifically because to move all the plants that were in the front of the window out of the way for the tree, because the first year we were here, we didn't put a tree up. We waited a year and then put it up in 2019.
Right. Okay, so with that rack, I'm just highlighting a question. We're not going to answer it right now, but we're just so that I don't forget. So with that rack, what was your next course of action? Because now you've got orchids on there. Did you just wait to see how the light influence would work with what you've adapted in the corners, or how did you, what was your...
I lost my mind, Nina. Okay. I said, oh, I have a shelf. I can get more Cattleya.
Okay.
And so I filled this shelf with Cattleya. I bought 3 big girls. I was like, I want the big girls. And so I went crazy and filled it up with Cattleya. And I took one of the set of grow lights from the bottom shelf, and I put 2 sets in here for the brighter light.
Right.
And then from there, I said, oh, and now I have more room. When you were talking about earlier about just because you have the space doesn't mean you have to fill it. I thought I did. So that's where the novelties came in. I was like, oh, I can grow them under there because they'll get plenty of light. Yeah. So that's how that's how it evolved. Me getting this shelf as a placeholder until spring actually turned into me buying more orchids to fill the shelf.
Right. Okay. So we had a very interesting question here that I find very important, because we have, let's say, figured out our dark space for what we've got. We bought more orchids. Now we have a shelf where we can allocate the orchids on. Now, the shelf, I find that filling in the corners with lights is not exactly expensive, as you mentioned. That's the least of our worries. If we're just working with windowsill, we really don't have any investment at all because we're working with natural light. The shelf, my shelf, wasn't the investment either. And for that reason, I bought 2, one for outside, one for inside, you know. 3, sorry, I bought 3 because east and west. However, now we're coming into the point where we've invested in orchids and now we need to keep them alive. Now we are coming into the point of this is becoming an obligation, because we've gone from windowsill, expansion to corners, lights, rack, because our interest and curiosity is expanding. And then we want some of the big ones because we don't want to wait 5 to 6 years for blooms. Now it's becoming an obligation, whereas before it was all kind of like still, this'll do, this'll do, this'll do. And here we are now with the lights. Rayanne Reese, don't be sad about that. You may hear some of the cons of growing in a grow space. And only windows is a fabulous blessing.
Oh, yes.
I'm telling you, if you can grow orchids with only the use of your windows, at this point, at this day and age, in the climate that we are in, it's a blessing, okay? So please don't be discouraged about that. Consider yourself very fortunate, and I hope that your orchids are still doing well, because that's a double win. So let's talk about the lights and how you came about installing what you installed, and how quickly did that have to happen after you got the rack?
So, I didn't actually put the lights up until after about a month of them being on here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually a gift from my daughter, because I was going to just use just regular kitchen LED lights that you can just get at your local hardware store. And she said, well, if you could pick any light, what would you pick? And I said, well, a regular, and that is in air quotes, grow light. And so I bought the Barinas, and it was a pack of 8 for, I think it was like $60, which is, not cheap, but it's not expensive.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so I got a pack of 8 and they came with like the connector cords, ways to
Wow.
hang and whatnot. And I got the white, even though they do have a slight pink tinge to them. I could have gotten the blurples.
Yeah.
But because they're in my living room and it's like my main place where I stay, I didn't want the blurples. So we got those. And then it was probably, a matter of fact, last year, 2022, so about 2 years later, I bought another box of 8 lights to put on some of my smaller shelves, and to kind of put the light back on the bottom because of the extra light that I took for my cat Leia. And I still have 4 of those lights. So it's an investment, but if you shop around, you can get a pretty good deal on them.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that, I have a friend who also grows orchids, and she gets like these lights, and they're like $100 a piece. I'm like, why?
Right.
Why? You can use regular LED over, from your local hardware store.
Right.
You don't have to get specific grow lights. If my daughter hadn't offered to buy them for me as a gift, I probably would just have regular kitchen lights under here.
Right. So here's the thing. When I hear about your prices, I want to be also very mindful that I don't need to be anywhere near there. Oh, geez. I want to be very mindful. Sorry about the bubble. I'll try and figure that out afterwards. Or maybe I'm just going to, sorry, Trish. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I want to be very mindful that when it comes to lights, the price range is exorbitant. Like
Yes.
Trish said, she can get XYZ for minimal amount, and I can get the same thing here, and it's going to cost me triple. All right. I am in Europe, and our price ranges are so much different. You have so much more competition on the other side of the pond, so you get a better range. Be very careful if you're setting up your grow space, if you're starting out at new, be very careful not to get caught up with expensive is best. Okay? You need to be very focused on, what do my orchids need? How long do they need that? And how much natural light can I give them? Because what we're talking about here is, don't forget, this is supplemental lighting. All right? Artificial lights, okay. We should try to focus on getting lighting installed that is a supplement of what can be provided on a daily basis. And then if the daylight hours shorten, we can bump it up for another 2 or 3 hours when we switch our lights on. That would be the ideal situation. Now, if you happen to have or start building your collection and you have a grow space that is a spare bedroom, and for example, it is north facing and you're in the northern hemisphere, then of course you need to be mindful of the fact that your lights will be or should be running 12 hours a day. Because north and north, that's not going to work. And the same with south and southern hemisphere. All right. So keep in mind that when it comes to growing orchids, your major investment after you've settled your new babies in and you're all happy with your collection, your major investment will be the long-term feasibility running cost in order to sustain what you are growing in your grow space. And that starts with electricity and it ends with electricity, because it's not just lights, And now I'm going to ask Trish's Orchid Life about humidity and how she handles that. However, what I want to show you, and what I was talking about the cost factor, if we go up onto my setup while it was fully up and running, I mean, it is fully up and running and operational. I just do not switch my lights on. But while it was fully up and running and operational, I don't have a timer on my lights. I went to work in the morning, lights went on, and I came home at night and the lights went switched off. Sometimes I was at home and had my day off. It was sunny outside during the winter. I would not put my lights on. My orchids would be outside enjoying the Spanish sun. But seeing as I didn't invest in a timer, it was me. I was the timer. And sometimes my orchids ran for 12 hours, sometimes for 14 hours. Sometimes my daughter switched them off after 9 hours. Everything balances itself out if you can get them to have an average, cost-effective average of, let's say, 8 to 10 hours during the winter is plenty for the majority of orchids and what they're doing. People like to talk about 12, 13, and 14 hours. Well, we can stress our orchids out as well, because the majority of our orchids that we are growing come from the tropics, and that is a 12-hour, 13-hour maximum time span. Pushing them to 15 hours based on the location of your hemisphere. Let's just say if you're up north, you have more hours in the summer than I even have daylight down here in southern Spain. It is stressful. Orchids need their rest. They need to open their stomata to breathe, and those that have their stomata open during the day, they need to close their stomata to get a rest, and they will only close their stomata at night. So switching lights off is important. However, back to the cost factor. Let me just, oh, please, mouse. Let me just show you. Up here on the top, you can see that I have shop lights. I saw a comment just now from Michael McCarthy. Those aren't grow lights. Those are shop lights. If you were to go into, let's say, Michael Kors, and they have a beautiful shelf with all their handbags, or to some kind of a sunglass hut, those are regular shop lights. There's no spectrum, there's no nothing. It's just them. And I had my pots underneath, and they would be doing fabulously under those lights. Now, when we talk about full spectrum, on top of that, you look to the right, I have my blur pull lights. The reason I staggered it this way when it came to the lighting was some of my orchids are in growth phase, not necessarily in spike and bloom, and that's where those orchids would be. If they're in active growth, boom, they went under blur pull lights, because the light spectrum of blue and red is conducive to lots of growth. That's why they were positioned there. That's why I have two different sets of lights. If we move more over to the right even further, I need a bigger screen, we can see that the top shelf has phalaenopsis. And not to be confused, those little halogen spotlights were not on when my orchid lights were on. So the phalaenopsis got residual light from my blur pull lights. That was the plan. And you can see that the spikes are moving in the direction of the light source, which is happy days. Either the glass, because that is a very important light source outdoors, or at night, later in the day, whatever, the blur pull lights. But they were, in my books, still too dark. And I don't know if LED is referred to me, but they were still too dark, but it is what it is. I didn't want the leaves to burn with any halogen spotlighting. So this setup, my blur pull lights were the cheapest of the cheapest of the cheapest that I could find in Amazon. Honestly, if I don't know, they look so primitive up close. The light bulbs are like a nickel, the size of a nickel. You got pink and purple and pink and purple and pink and blue. And I don't know what. I don't look at them, not even with my glasses specific for these kinds of lights. But they are so, so primitive. Nothing fancy. And yes, you may say, well, for the rest of the year, you're growing your orchids outdoors, plenty of light. But it doesn't matter. They need light regardless, indoors or outdoors. So it's initially, please do not go into an investment frenzy thinking, I want the best of the best for my orchids. And then afterwards you think, well, you know what? I could have, saved myself about maybe $300, $500 because at the time I thought this was the right thing to do. At this day and age, you don't need to go to those extremes. My opinion, that is not from somebody. When I set up this infrastructure indoors, money was not an object, but I was very frugal, very, very conservative about what I was prepared to spend for plants. Okay. So when you see fancy setups, everything looks like, whoa, thousands and thousands of dollars. Let me tell you, my shop lights to the left were the most expensive of everything that you see in this grow room. And Trish's Orchid Life has a fabulous deal. $60 for 8 thingies of lights. One of these shop lights cost me 75 euros, maybe that's $78. That's one. And I have 2 of them lined up for a total of, well, I don't know, is that 12 feet on the top there? I have 2 of them lined up. Ridiculously expensive, but worth it for me. They don't generate heat, which is something we are going to get into now if I still have your attention and Trish's attention. Heat. Trish, take it away. How do you combat heat indoors in your grow space now that you've got lights up and running, and not just in the winter, but in general, in the summer? How is that going to work out for you?
So because I do grow again in my home, and even though I have a controlled environment, there's a lot of doors opening and closing. My temperature in my home, and especially here in the living room, pretty much stays between 72 and 74 degrees. It very rarely fluctuates one way or the other unless I have the windows open. So in the summertime, when most people are running their ACs, we do open our windows with crosswind, and it can get 79, 80 in the house, but it doesn't feel hot, if that makes sense. Like the leaves on the orchids aren't hot, they're cool. So I don't really, I'm lucky in the fact that because it's kind of an open and it's not an enclosed room, that the temperature stays fairly consistent. So I don't really have to, even by the window, of course, it was getting a little bit warmer. So those orchids that were more tolerant of the heat, I would shuffle and rearrange to make sure that, like, I wouldn't put a phalaenopsis by the window in the summertime, because they don't obviously like the heat of the day. So I would shuffle orchids around, but I don't have to do it every season, like only when it gets really, really cold here in Colorado. Once the first snow and we start getting regular snow and I know it's going to stay cool, then that's when I do the shuffling. And then come about end of March, beginning of April, when it starts getting warmer and the snow and the cool is kind of more sporadic, not every day, then I will put the warmer people back in the front.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But it took me 2 full growing seasons to figure that out. So it's not something I learned like my first year growing in this home. I had to be here for a while and figure out. And like I said earlier with the one window, it was just this year, and I've been here since 2018. It was just this year that I noticed the frost on the inside of the house.
Right. Well, here's the thing as well with the heat. Not everybody is open to opening the window. My experience from back in the States was, never open the window, whereas I couldn't bear being in a room without an open window.
And I think a lot of that has to do with, I grew up with a German mother, and we opened the windows every day.
Right.
First thing in the morning, windows were open to let out, the stuffiness from the heat or whatever. And I just kind of carried that through.
Right.
Now, I do have the extra bedroom that in there, I do sometimes have to put a little small fan on the floor because it is a southwest facing window. So even with the AC on, that one does get a little bit warm. I actually forgot I had that room, to be honest with you. because my son's been staying in there, but it does get a little warm. So sometimes I do have to put a little fan in there to circulate, because otherwise it does get kind of stuffy and really dry.
Yeah. The thing is that when we talk about heat as such, lights will radiate heat. So go ahead.
So these right here, my marinas, they don't radiate heat. Like if I touch it, it's really cool. Like there's a little bit of warmth, but when you come down here, there's no heat on them. My overhead lights, which I don't use my overhead lights very often. Like I have it on today just because if I don't, it's really dark in here. Even, then I just look weird. But I use these lights as my everyday lights. They turn off around 7 p.m. local time. And then I just kind of sit in the dark. I'm weird like that.
No, but I hear you.
I know, with electricity the way it is now, I've got to like give it up somewhere. So, but yeah, I do know there are people who use just regular, like their regular room light. Like I said, I have another friend at work that's just starting to collect orchids, and she just uses the light that's in the room. She's got daylight LEDs in there, and she's using those as like her supplemental lighting to help with her grow space.
Yeah. So that is the beauty of, if you were then going to expand on your budget, my cheapo lights, the blurple lights, they do not radiate any heat at all. My shop lights, a teeny tiny bit, but they're far away from the orchids. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is because with heat comes dry air, usually in a grow space. Okay, so it's not just our orchids love it hot and whoop-de-doo, everything is coolio. From what I'm gathering, you still use your heater. Your lights do not warm up the room, even though it's a small room, right? So now we're talking lights on that don't generate heat, but you've got a heater on. And in my case, for example, during the winter, I have very high humidity with cold temperatures in an unheated room, and my lights don't heat the room or the space up either to reduce my humidity. Now, that is actually an okay kind of scenario. I've still got my humidity going and I'm not doing anything about it. What did you do after you've got your lights? Now you need some humidity in your grow space. Was that something that we skipped during you building what you've got yourself now? Or was that afterwards you realized, oh, dang, now there's so much air consumption, including me needing warmth during the winter. And then I'm opening my windows during the summer. I'm assuming Colorado is dry.
It is.
That now I've got no humidity. So what were your contemplations? How did you go about that? Are you even doing anything about it?
So in 2019, from 2019 to 2021, I ran the humidifier at night and decided I didn't need it because my orchids were actually, I had a lot of rot. They were getting too wet, even though I only had it at 50% humidity, because in my home, obviously you don't want it too much higher than that. So since 2021, so from 2021 through last year's growing season, and even this winter, I haven't used the humidifier at all. I maintain, my living room maintains between 30 and 40% humidity year round. Just as like yesterday, in the last 24 hours, it got up to 39% humidity with a high of 73. Right now it's 73 degrees in here and it's 33% humidity. And when I do have the windows open and say it's above 76, 77, I will run the humidifier, but then I make sure that the humidity is back down to at least 40%. before I close my windows back up.
Okay.
But I have found, and I know it is said in the Googles and in the books that, orchids need humidity. They prefer humidity. They prefer higher humidity. And I did notice that some of my orchids, a very small handful as opposed to the majority who were suffering from the extra humidity, some of them did do better, but the majority of mine weren't doing as well as when I just had that minimum 30 to 40%.
Right. So here's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
But I am finding, like in the summertime when I have the AC on, the humidity is higher because it's cooler. I'm having to water less. Whereas in the winter, I do water once a week. Like all of them need water once a week. Right. So I don't know. I feel like that is kind of balancing that out because when you water, obviously the humidity will rise a little bit around that market, around all of those. So, and then throughout the week, some of my the orchids that are in smaller pots, I do water them throughout the week. So again, that microclimate just from the evaporation. I don't know if that's what it is, to be honest, Nita. I don't know if that's balancing it out.
Well, here's the thing. What you were just describing with your watering needs for your orchids is exactly the reverse as it is for me. All right. Let's just say I'm working and my orchids are indoors because even in the summer I'm working. I didn't schlep them outside unless it was really nice over a period of time where I could trust it. All right.
Right.
And no wind blowing. It was very, very dangerous for me not to be home. The wind would blow, curtain would be up, and boom, oregano. So I find that I was watering more during the summer, of course, because of my conditions being super dry. And I'm watering extremely little, flushing super conservatively during the winter because my temperatures are very, very low, higher humidity. So again, when it comes to a grow space, wherever you are located, you need to balance your humidity. Yes, orchids love humidity, but a grow space also is, you're indoors. You don't want things dripping off the walls. I can see the mirror in front of me now has condensation because of the amount of humidity I have where I am sat. It's crazy. Sometimes I can breathe humidity, which I don't have in the summer. So the watering, yes, before you go and invest in a humidifier, just because you see it somewhere else happening, be it on YouTube or somebody recommends it, wait on that investment and see what happens with your space, because the watering ups the humidity considerably. And every pot, all you need is the pot to have a microclimate around it for the humidity to serve that one pot, and eventually with 4, 5, 6, 10 pots next to each other, you've created let's say a rectangle or a square of humidity that is pretty much controlled. And we will work with airflow, because I can hear you, big dog, saying, hey, but what about airflow? It blows all the humidity away, and we will get there. But yeah, before you go rushing off getting a humidifier for this place and for that place and up there, let it fall and drip down there, don't. Wait and see what happens, because the majority of the orchids that we grow in a grow space, I hope to hopefully one day have a guest on with a greenhouse, because that's another space. I am not addressing greenhouses. This is specifically indoor controlled grow space. Before you go running off doing that, watch what happens with your orchids. The majority of the ones that we grow in a space like that, they will, with their pots, with their compadres, regulate an environment. You won't need a humidifier. And you always have the option of humidity trays, even though people say it doesn't work. I don't believe so. And Trish is holding up a gadget, which is the major investment before you get yourself a humidifier. That's a hygrometer.
So the one I have gives you the humidity and the current temperature. I think I paid, it was less than $10 on Amazon, not sponsored. But if you're going to invest in anything, get you one of these or get you a couple, put them around the area where you're growing your orchids or want to grow your orchids. Leave it there for at least a week. Like, don't just do it for one day. Leave it there for a week and kind of see what your humidity level is in that area. See what your average temperature is in that area. And then decide what you may need or what orchids will work in that space. You don't necessarily have to buy all the other stuff to go with it if you have an orchid already or a group of orchids that will work in that particular microclimate in that area.
Right. And these hygrometers, sorry, words are hard. Hygrometers are important if you can source one that has a memory, okay? So that you can go back and see what the average temperature and humidity was while you were sleeping, for example, as it records and keeps the data throughout the night. And then you get a very clear understanding that your nights are completely different to your days, and it could be your nights are balancing things out. So get yourself one of those before rushing off and messing around with humidifiers. So
this is the cheapest thing you can buy for yourself before you start buying all of the other stuff, even if you buy the fancier ones.
Right. Okay, so let's just have a look see. Julie's Orchid said, "It's good to see you, Julie. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your nice toasty climate." Anyway, yes. Not jealous much. I'd suggest testing the humidity levels throughout the year and seasons. I only need to run my humidifier in late spring, summer, and early autumn. Julie's Orchids is in good old Australia down under, so she is having her beautiful summer at the moment. And well, that makes sense because Julie's Orchids is also in an extremely dry climate, all right? So Anita Brown says, no humidifier, just a small fountain. Beautiful. That works a treat. It's a beautiful sound and is it also enhances the atmosphere actually around you, your space, makes it just a small fountain running and meter. LED Barina lights. Okay, there we have a Barina lights to match with you as well, Trish. And Sandy's Orchid's humidity is 26%. Dang, welcome to my world, girl. Well, not right now, but yikes. Whoa. Oh, in the summer, definitely, yes. So we've talked about the warmth. Let's talk about maybe you can speak on this as well, but I don't want to keep bringing attention to my thing, but the example of humidity, cold temperatures. We get cold temperatures, even in an indoor grow space, the unfathomable can happen. And I'm sorry, Sandy, I'm going to bring something up. I don't want to trigger you or hurt you or anything, but I feel you because I'm feeling similar circumstances at the moment, is that, electricity, power cuts, natural disasters, there's a reason why suddenly our beautiful ready space, fantastic grow space collapses. And there's no heat for a time. There are no lights for a time. Humidity can go off the charts, and we've got cold temperatures. Have you got an opinion on that, Trish? Is that something that you want to weigh in on because you've had recently a similar experience when your windows were exchanged? And dang.
Yes. So yesterday when they replaced the windows, when they came, it was 35 degrees. I was shown that they were going to replace, one or two, like there were a team of two, like 2 guys, 4 guys. Anyway, I thought one, they're going to replace this window, replace, install. No, they took out all the windows in the house. It was 35 degrees outside at like 10:30 in the morning, 9:30, 10:30 in the morning. So I ended up putting a sheet across these girls. All the other orchids were kind of piled together here. I put a sheet over them. I had them in bathrooms, and I was walking around all day touching the leaves and the cold, It had got 18 degrees, and there was a breeze blowing through the house. It was actually warmer outside than it was inside my house at the time.
I have that too. I have that here too.
Yeah.
I'm freezing inside, and I'd go outside. I'm like, dang.
It's warm out here. So I was going around like feeling the leaves and trying to, see if they were okay. Are they too cold? And in my head, I was like, this must be what Nina's doing right now, like every day going around checking her girls. And then today I left the sheet on overnight after they finished putting the windows in. We turned the heat back on. I left the sheets on the shelf here, and I left it over, and I left everybody where they were to warm up. And then I'm, checking everybody today as I'm putting everything away. That's kind of why I'm kind of looking a little tatty. I worked up until this. And with cold damage, it's going to take a while to show up. It doesn't always show up immediately. So I'm hoping that, especially my thinner leaf orchids, my oncidiums and stuff are going to be okay. Even right now, even though the heat is on, sitting right here, it's cold to me. It's about 71 degrees now. So there's no draft or anything, but from the time we started to now, it has, in this area right here, has cooled down.
Okay.
So even though my heat is on this area and over by the door, I'm pretty sure, because if I go there, it's going to be a little chilly too. But I don't feel a draft.
Okay.
So
good. Well, that hopefully the windows will do their job, and that your orchids only had a little bit of a shock. But yeah, the sheets and the towels, and then tucking them away in different areas and locations definitely is a big help. So the only thing I can say when it comes to me and my situation is that while humidity and cold temperatures can pose all sorts of issues, if something like that arises, and I'm sorry that you couldn't do that because you had airflow going through your entire home, not by choice, but you couldn't exactly stop it. But I would recommend do not encourage airflow, because that will just perpetuate and make everything even colder. Your humidity won't be lessened, even though you're moving air around. The best thing is to try and get some heat up, or as Trish just suggested, get sheets around, get them nice and snug and cozy so that nothing can hit them for the duration of that cold snap. Okay. Now, that's the only thing that can happen on an indoor grow space when things get a little bit dicey and you cannot provide with your installation in place efficiently. Just make sure that you can somehow tide them over. And when people say, yeah, you can put fairy lights and I don't know what, yeah, we're talking about no electricity. All right. So don't put sheets and try fairy lights. There is no electricity. You can't switch them on. While they might be helpful in certain circumstances, not in this situation. The best thing you can do is ride it out. One thing though, in situations like that, do not fertilize. If it is an extended period of time that you're suffering these circumstances and having to deal with them, do not fertilize heavily, but emphasize, if you can, on calcium and magnesium, just to give them what they need, if they can even absorb it, because metabolism will slow down straight away. They'll grind to a halt, but if there is one inkling of temperatures recovering, light also being a little bit more available, they will need to photosynthesize, and they will need the calcium in order to be able to stay strong. Calcium is an immobile nutrient, especially usually, that's why we grow these orchids, they start doing fancy, nice new growths during the time of year that we don't have much to look forward to outside, and our orchids are starting to show new growth. So they need the calcium even if you cannot fertilize, okay? Usually the most, let's say, challenging times are very short-lived. And thankfully, our orchids have a very slow metabolism, so we can work that in our favor by, don't worry, give them some calcium and magnesium during the short span of bad times. And then at least they have that little bit of strength, so that when things pick up, so will the orchid, and they already have their little boosters in them. I hope that makes sense.
Funny that you should say that. It's funny you should say that, Nina, because last weekend I actually gave them all a really good CalMax oak in preparation for this weekend.
That's great.
So
That's great. And that is what I did with my orchids leading up to my winter. October, November, they all got a CalMag soak. I mean, I targeted it more as a lead up into the adverse conditions. And I'm just hoping my calculations and my gamble will pay off. I have as yet to finish a video, but what I'm saying now is part of that video because of the new growths that we're dealing with. So if anybody were to watch the video after already also being in this stream, I appreciate that you might be hearing a repeated message. However, you know, even if I put timestamps into live streams, I know it's a bit cumbersome to watch them over, but still, hello, I wish this was now in focus. We are looking at Murasaki Komachi.
And I just, since Michael is here, Michael McCarthy, thank you. This is, I give you this credit. I got a double spike on this lovely lady. There's a total of 9 blooms. They are kind of going over, but I was hoping they would last for now. Followed all of your directions, and she is in cocoa husk with just roots galore. Look at that. Beautiful. But I love this. Thank you for your advice.
I hope that the video processes so that we can see them in let's say
better light.
Multicolor, beautiful.
Yes.
But yeah, that's awesome. Anyway, so we've addressed that. We've addressed that. Can I ask you, without throwing out numbers, and if this is not something you want to share, please don't feel obliged to do so. Okay. But how cost effective is what you have done with your setup? Would you have changed anything knowing what you know now based on the investment you made? However, having more insight into maybe, oh, well, I pulled the trigger too quickly on that. I could have gotten it cheaper and it would have done the same thing.
Really, the only thing I think I would have done sooner is timers. Because, like I said, I can work anywhere from 12 to 14 hours. And then 2 days of the week, I drive an hour to work and an hour back. So that's 16 hours. And back when I was turning the lights on and off manually, the electricity bill was a little bit higher. Having put them on a timer and I can control, like currently right now in February, when we're doing this live stream, these are only on for 8 hours a day.
Okay.
All the grow lights, 8 hours a day.
Right.
So knowing that these are going to turn off in 8 hours instead of 14 or 16 hours, burning less, you know, especially with everything going up, that's more cost effective. So I would have probably invested in a timer setup a lot sooner than now.
Okay. That's interesting.
I mean, because the shelf itself, again, was not that expensive. And if I would have bought what I wanted to be aesthetic, then it would have cost thousands of dollars to do. However, with this, and then like I said, with the Brenas, they weren't that expensive either. The timer, I'd have bought my timers a lot sooner because this way, again, like you were saying with the stressing with too much light, like they do need to rest. I've noticed that once they've been on a timer, they actually are doing much better than before.
Okay.
And they just kind of had that one day they'd get 10 hours, the next day they'd get 16, the next day they'd get 12. And then if, you know, God forbid I had to go do something after work and not get home until, 9, 10 o'clock p.m. on practically all day.
Right. Okay. So have you got, and that includes all your spaces, all your lights, even if it's in the basement, and they're all on
No,
timers.
I don't grow anything in the basement anymore. Not orchid wise. The grow light that they had sent me to test, I wouldn't recommend. It's not conducive for orchids.
Okay.
So it's more anyway. We won't go into that, but I wouldn't recommend it. So there are no orchids grown down in the basement anymore. In the extra bedroom, there's no supplemental lighting. They just get the southeast or southwest lighting, and once it gets dark, it's just dark.
Okay.
I have another small shelf that has primarily phals on it that I use for my outside growing. That does have one Barina light each on it. That is also on a timer, and it's only on for 8 hours as well.
Okay. Interesting.
And they come, all the lights come on in a stagger, so they don't all come on at one time and go off at one time. They're all staggered in a 30-minute interval.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I like that. When I had my lights on, I staggered my lights within the shelf system. So I'm sorry if I'm going to boot you for a moment there, Trish.
No, you're fine.
But let's just see. I'm not sure if I can show this properly or do it justice, make sense. Maybe if I can explain myself and find my words properly, we'll zoom in. Okay. Now, what you can't see on the top shelf is right up above the orchids on the top shelf. There is one of the lights that you see underneath down here. Okay. There's only one bar because of the way the stucco is up on the ceiling. Anyway, that's fine. That was plenty of light. You can see I have very high light orchids under those lights. And then like the Prostechia that you can see right here, that is not so bright. That doesn't need as high light as, let's say, the Brassavolas or a Gulf Green Hair Pig or a Coilostylis. Anyway, so even the setup and the way they are on the top, that is purposefully done, okay? And I don't understand why my screen is not zooming in because I'm fully zoomed in. Oh, maybe it is zoomed in. Dang, that looks small. But anyway, so what you can't see here is the depth of the shelf, okay? But when I was talking about staggering your lights, for example, and maybe also saving on a budget, not going overboard and thinking that you need, in the beginning, as you're testing your setup, you can take, let's say, 2 bars, whatever it is, the length of your shelf, and push the 2 bars to the front of the bottom shelf, and then you light up the shelf underneath that, if that makes sense. I hope so. However, the next shelf down, and even though it's not obvious, here, these lights are pushed to the back. Sorry, they're pushed to the middle. So you can see the middle bar right here. I want to make sure, I don't know if you can see that, but here's the middle beam of that shelf, and the lights are suspended right along the middle. So we have the top filtering down to a degree. Yes, pots will interfere, etc. That will happen. However, whatever filters through will land on the orchids underneath, and then I have my next 2 bars in the center beam now filling in that space, and right at the bottom, and it's a shame, maybe I have this picture right here. You can see this is the bottom. Look, come on, mouse. This is the bottom shelf. And you can see the bar is right up against the back. So I've got from the top to the push to the front. The middle shelf is, the lights are suspended in the middle. The lower shelf all the way to the back. In the let's say calculation that everything at some point in time where there is a gap will filter through. And I've positioned my orchids. These are very highlight orchids on the bottom shelf, but they are right underneath what are the blurple lights right here. And you can see how big the lights are, nickel size, very primitive, but you see how low these orchids are growing. They are not close to the light at all. There is no risk of burning. So because they are so low, I can put them right under the beam. So you want to make sure that when you position your orchids for the first time with your new lights, you want to make sure that you're not going to go, this is safe, this is awesome, I've got airflow, I've got humidity, and you're going to slam your orchids too close to the light source. Give it time, test it out. Be sure to see what they do, let's say at a distance, and then move them in further. if I were, for example, I do have a picture. Here's my top shelf with my single bar. You see, these are really, really tall orchids, and yet there is still another major gap from the top of the bar to the top of the leaves. And while they can be there for 8 to 10 hours with the lights on, there won't be any burning. They are going to get enough light, I promise you. They don't have to be close to the leaves ever at all, okay? Now, some people get away with it, and that is also depending on the quality of your lights, all right? But to be on the safe side, and I'm always erring on the side of caution on my channel because I'm putting out somewhat global statements, I don't want your leaves to burn. But there is no harm, no foul to have a more exaggerated gap between your light source and your leaves. Your orchids will still get enough light, okay? Until you're comfortable and think, well, I can still raise them up if I have to test the water, so to speak. How much more can they take? But once you've got your installation in, it is very difficult to raise them down. So exaggerate on your height and your installation, because everything after that can be manipulated and raising orchids up. But once you've got your lights in, it is a pain in the derriere, to say the least, to dismantle the whole thing, get your shelving adjusted again, and, well, you know, the rest is history, literally. I'm going to show you something. This is what it looks like, has looked like for the last 8 days. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to take, yesterday for me, I had an opportunity to take my mounts outside to get them a little bit of water, my tolumnias, but I'm telling you, my tolumnias are a deep, deep red, burgundy, cold stress. Okay, so anybody watching my videos in the future, if I don't elaborate, it's because I'm in shock. Okay, it's a bit difficult sometimes to word things properly without sounding, oh my goodness, I'm about to slam my head against the wall kind of jargon. But yes, these are light levels without the lights on. I am in southern Spain, and this is an overcast day. It is what it is, but this is what it was when it was fully up, functional and up and running. And you can see that the only reason I've got leaves so close to the light source is because I switched my lights on for demonstration purposes only, and to take pictures, and then I switched them off again. This would not be happening at all if my lights were on during the day, okay? So I didn't see the chat at all while I was doing that. Let me get Trish back onto full screen, seeing as she's our guest. And let me see if there were any questions or any contradictions to what I've said with better advice. Let me have a look. Okay, well, Trish has been entertained. Thank you so much for keeping up with the chat, Trish. I appreciate that a lot.
I'm trying. I'm still learning this. But what you were saying about staggering, I had mine staggered on my stand, but I recently, well, I say recently, sometime in 2022, I put these liners. They're kind of opaque liners to keep water from dripping on here. And since I've done that, most of mine are kind of in the middle instead of having them staggered through, because the light doesn't really reflect through this opaque that much. But before, I did have mine staggered like you were suggesting. And like you said, like they will still get the light. They don't have to be right up on the light, especially when I took the one from the bottom shelf and I had some cattleya seedlings and some other things down there that needed high light, and they were still getting plenty of light from the above shelves.
Okay. Well, at the end of the day, I know, he's got the whole shebang. At the end of the day, when we come to the point of getting more infrastructure set in and dealt with so that we have our orchid collection hopefully very happy and eventually blooming for us, is that what I get out of this live stream, and as I was thinking about it back in the day, is that it is a gradual process. Even if, for example, you've got everything measured out and I had all my stuff measured out to the size of the pots that were going to go on the shelf to the left. I had it all measured out. It's a calculation. It worked. There is still an orchid shuffle to be done, because if you buy all your kit and caboodle at once and it all works, do not think that there's something wrong if at the end of the day you're not using your humidifier. Well, put it back in its box, put it away, okay? There is no reason to have everything at the same time going on, because orchid growing is dynamic. It always changes. Lights, even with artificial lights, your orchid needs change. We haven't even addressed, because there's no need to do that, but we haven't even addressed, for example, orchids that need higher light during the winter, even when they don't have leaves and you're growing them in your indoor grow space, as opposed to other orchids that need less light if those are the kinds of orchids you are growing. So from a broad spectrum, what we discussed tonight is pretty much, you can buy the kit and caboodle, you can do all the measurements, and it's going to be absolutely fine, but don't get your deck chair out and sit back with your cocktail, watch your orchids grow without being mindful of what is going on. It is not a one and done, ever. And if everything goes well, your orchids will grow. They will grow taller. They will start blooming. You will have to be aware of what is going on. The blooms might get too close to the light and frazzle. Your leaves are growing taller. Your structures are growing bigger. They get too close to the light and frazzle. All these things are things that you need to be aware of. It's not a one and done. Like I said, deck chair, cocktail doesn't happen in the orchid hobby, in my opinion. At least not with me.
Unless, you're sitting on your deck chair, have a cocktail, admiring your orchids, and you're like, what is that? And you get up with your cocktail and you walk over and you're like, oh, you need to move right here. And then you go back and sit down and enjoy your cocktail.
And yes, exactly. And then, oh my goodness, it's a yo-yo thing, up and down, up and down. And then, once you think you're settled in, something else hits you and up you go again and have another look. So here's the thing though. When we were talking about, it was just a thought that occurred to me while we were talking earlier about lights not heating up. I would like to know, I could not determine whether my leaves were too close to my lights because my lights didn't heat up by the temperature of the leaves. Do you feel the same way? Do you have that?
Oh yeah, I look at these every day, and these are getting kind of close to the light. So I definitely touch them, and this is a thinner leaf, and they're cool so far. So even with these ladies up here.
Isn't that amazing? Because I just want to be mindful of, and I'm going to put another timestamp just so into my notes, because this is not something that I had actually thought about until when we were talking about lights, heat, and humidity. But you can, as opposed to when the orchids are outside, you can touch and you can feel the leaves heating up with regards to the sunlight or the heat in the air, whatever. The leaves will warm up considerably, and to the point, oops, that's too far, it's going to burn, even if you can't see it yet. But when it comes to grow lights, you don't have that luxury. You literally have to, in the early days, be super vigilant and get to know them and see how far you can get how close you can get them, if that is something you want to risk, because temperature and touching the leaves isn't going to cut it.
So just an example real quick. So my Renee Marquis Tyler,
mm-hmm.
I used to grow under here, and she was like this far from the light.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably pretty dark, but this growth, which was the latest growth, was very red with anthocyanin.
Right.
To the point where she looked burnt. And if you kind of see a little bit, there's some burnt leaf, and that's from being under the light.
Okay.
I moved her away from the light, that strength of light, and now she's turning green again. But of course, excuse me, that leaf tip is always going to be bad. But the newest growth is coming. Well, maybe that newest growth is coming the right color because she's just sitting in front of this window. So I thought she needed more light, and that's why I put her under the grow light. And even though, so here's here's the shelf. The grow light was like here in comparison, and she was still getting very red. So that's something else you can kind of watch.
Yeah.
Obviously, a little bit of anthocyanin and a little bit of redness is okay. That means you've kind of pushed it to where it can take it.
Yeah.
But if the whole growth is turning red, that's too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah. Depending on the orchid, of course, because we have some orchids that are just naturally like that.
Right.
But if you've got a Tolumnia that is burgundy, that is not good. All right. Ever. A Tolumnia should have spots on them. They shouldn't be completely burgundy. Ever. no matter what.
No. I do want to touch on something real quick, Nina, because I know a lot of people who grow in their home think they can't grow mounts because it'll mess up their walls.
Good point. It was on my notes, but go ahead. Awesome.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No.
I saw the mounts and it made me think of it. You can grow orchids on a mount in your home. They do take a lot more time. Okay. I'm going to pull down my Cattleya and I'm going to show you guys something real quick. So this is the Hawaiian treat. So you see all the roots on there? Because a lot of people say, you know, you need that high humidity for the roots to whatever, and nice big juicy grow tips. So what I do with this one is, sorry, my window minimized on me there. I water this in the growing season. She gets watered every day. Every single day I water her. The way I water her is I lay her like this and I just water the bottom and get that moss really, really wet. And then I let her lay for about 30 minutes to absorb. I make sure she's fully drained, take a towel, kind of wipe any excess, and I hang her back on my wall. I do not have watermarks on my wall. None of that. That is, you can still do it. In the winter time, she gets watered every 3 days. I make sure she is completely dried out because she is by this window. It does get a little bit cooler. The ones that I have on the other side of this shelf that you can't see, they get watered every day because it's my Brassivola little stars, my little Tolumnia, and then I have a phalaenopsis over there. I recently moved another Cattleya over there that also gets watered every day in the summer and every few days in the winter. She's on a smaller mount than this, but I just wanted to show you don't have to have the high humidity. You just have to put in the extra work in the watering.
Right. Are you concerned about the roots attaching to your wall at all?
No, because what I do is I take a paper towel. I actually have this one here, so this here is the Humidity, and this root right here, I don't know if you can see that, is actually, it's very, very flat. Yeah. And it grows up on the wall. So what I do before I usually take it down, I just recently watered this, so I knew this was still kind of dampened, is I take a paper towel and I dampen it, and anywhere where there's a root on the wall, I just hold that paper towel on it just enough to kind of dampen that root a little bit. And then as I'm taking it off, I take the paper towel and just kind of pick it up. And so far, knock on wood, I've not broken any roots.
Right. That's awesome. Because that would be my thing, and then because it sometimes happens to me in the summer when I have my orchids on the shelf and the ones that aren't, that are resting and they're growing roots, all of a sudden roots are growing up the wall, and I'm like, oh, I'll remember that for next time, and then next time comes and it doesn't, and I don't remember.
And I'll be honest, if I have a plant like this one here, her root system is pretty decent, not just what you saw, but inside the moss as well. If I've got one that's got a pretty decent root system, even though I still do the paper towel thing, if I break a root, I don't get too upset because that's just going to happen. That can happen in a pot,
right?
Just by moving it. So, I broke a root the other day trying to take a tag out to move the tag
Yeah.
because it wasn't where I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And a nice big juicy root with a nice long growing tip came out with it. And I was like, well,
I know, right?
So.
I guess we should just leave our tags alone. I did that the other day as well. But, you know, hey, my thing is always collateral damage is okay if there's 80% of the root already in the medium.
Yes. Now, if it's struggling and I break a root, I've been known to cry, like literally cry, because I broke a root.
Oh, it's so discouraging. Okay, I think this is a great idea as well.
Yes.
Chicken wire for the mounts. It's absolutely genius. Very simple, very cost effective. I like it.
Yes.
I do like that. Michelle Fucarino, I have a question for you on this one. You have yours in a bay window, or is this rack set aside elsewhere in a different room altogether? I just need to ask because I like this idea a lot. And sometimes what I started out with my grow space is wanting to have the aesthetics of my dining room enhanced by orchids, whereas now it's just orchids. But, you know, chicken wire, I suppose there are other ways as well to make it more aesthetic pleasing, or you have that many mounts that you don't even see the chicken wire anymore. I don't know, one of the two. I don't know if you're, you know, we do have a little bit of a time lag going here, but that is super interesting. It's a great idea. Okay, we have a question here for you, Trish.
Okay. It is actually, this is a cork slab. I do not have any orchids on wood slabs, but I would say they would probably do the same as long as it didn't have the salt in it. But I don't, all of mine are on cork.
Yeah, this one still needs to get her derriere going to get some cork. I still haven't done that, guys. I know. I've been saying that in every single live stream, and here we are. I still haven't done it. Okay, so Michelle answered, and she said she was worried about the aesthetic as well, but she can hardly see it. It's silver in color. Done.
So it blends in. Okay.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, I like the plastic coated idea as well, because I have that especially for my cockatoo and his little jungle gym outside. I know it doesn't look the part. Maybe I should have gone with black, but this is not my property. And if I were to move, I want to take that grating with me, and I'm into white. But yeah, I like the plastic coated idea as well. But that's awesome. Right, so let me just ask one more thing. We did talk about what would you have done differently knowing what you know now. Do you regret anything, for example, anything that, I mean, maybe over time you've corrected with what you've done? Is there anything that you would say, well, you know, that is all part of the learning curve? What would you, and if not, great, but if you have anything along those lines that you would like to share when you were building your grow space?
I think I would not have bought seedlings first.
Okay.
I think what I would have done was bought flowering size, not near flowering size, but actual flowering size, more mature plants to practice on, because they would have been able to handle it, I think, a little bit better. And you would have had, I'm going to say more instant gratification. Obviously, they are slow growers. It takes a while, but, you know, had a bloom sooner or the growth be bigger, and you're not just dealing with like little bitty things all the time. And you're watching these other people with these nice, beautiful, big, lush plants compared to, you know, your little itty bitty thing you've had for 2 years and gotten one growth out of. It was very, I'm not going to say disappointing, but very stressful. Trying to grow seedlings and thinking, you know, when you're going to bloom, 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 when you're going to bloom. and realizing that seedlings can take 5 to 7 years depending on, you know, what
Right.
genre they're in. And sometimes you don't want to invest that amount of time and you lose that interest. And I almost lost interest in other types of orchids besides the phals because of that. Because I bought a bunch of different seedlings of different types of orchids. And then once I bought some more of the more mature, you know, a mature Cattleya that came in bloom, a mature Oncidium that was, you know, in spike, then I was like, okay, I have something that I can see while I'm waiting.
Yes.
You know, so and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would recommend to someone who is starting a collection. Don't start with all seedlings.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be waiting years.
And that's why I have such mad respect for our Australian friends who have limitations and do what they do, because that is next level dedication. And I know I repeat myself, but it is worth repeating that we never forget that over there they are really, really putting in the work, and that takes more than just a love of orchids. That is next level. So always mad respect from my side to the Australians that have what they have to deal with, and they are doing it. And then, wow, it must be cartwheels around the patio when things happen. It's amazing. Also, from the point of deflasting, Rayanne, I agree. I'm so frustrated over half of mine are seedlings. Oh, sweetheart. Yeah.
Keep the faith. Just keep the faith. They will bloom.
Welcome in, committee. Sorry, I'm going to mute. You keep talking.
Okay. So, Rayanne, do you have some mature orchids as well, like both seedling type and the mature version of that seedling type? Like when I started, I had Cattleyas, and now I have more mature Cattleyas that not the same exact orchid, but similar.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back.
Oh, that's a great idea, Michelle. Triangle wire grid panel tower with base and casters.
My goodness.
So does it have shelves on it too that you set the orchid on there and then move it around?
Now I'm curious, because I don't know if you have an image you want to email me, because this looks like some kind of a trellis you would put in your vegetable garden for tomatoes to grow on, but you can convert that into what you are describing here. At least that is what I'm thinking. I'm not sure.
That's kind of what I'm visualizing.
Yeah, it's like one of those obelisks for the garden. Yeah, but you also sell yours, Joshi, right? So, of course, you have a lot of seedlings now. Are you referring to your private collection that you don't put up for sale, or? Michelle has got an inspired visual there, I have to say. Michael McCarthy says, I have more seedlings than I can count. Okay. All right. Yeah, sometimes it's the seedlings you can only get your hands on when they're like that. To be honest with you, my biggest regret that I had when you know, the before and the after and etc. is I overestimated my competence with regards to the fact I'm in southern Spain. I've got lots of sun and heat. Boom. I was schooled. So the first 2 and 3 years were fabulous. Everything is going fantastic. And of course, my orchids grew to size. Know what you are up against. Because if you're doing it right, your orchids will grow to size. And then your conditions and what you can provide may not cover their needs, and they can go downhill very, very fast. So my biggest regret was to assume that because of where I'm at, it's going to be fine. I can do this. And we get schooled very, very quickly. Orchids will teach us, no, you can't. Because if something needs high humidity, it'll be okay with what you can give it for X amount of time. If that orchid then grows to a size and you don't have high humidity, that orchid is not going to be very happy, and it won't be around very much longer. So choose your orchids wisely. If you have any questions, You can always come to this channel and I will guide you through the thought process. If you just need a confirmation of what you already know, but you want the second opinion, come to this channel and I can confirm what you already know and we can brainstorm together. But I would hate for a mistake to happen when you grow orchids for so many years and then they are beautifully big, you've done all the work, and all of a sudden it's because of your conditions you can't make them happy and they will perish. So that is my biggest regret. All right. Does anybody want to join us up here on panel because we have that time? I know that we're now 2 hours and 16 minutes in, but we did have some technical issues at the beginning. So I don't want to rush anybody, but I have gone through my notes. If anybody says, yes, but you didn't address this, and if we don't get to that in this stream, leave it in the comments after the video has processed, or come on up and ask away. Orchids by the Lake says, when the seedlings made it to blooming size, it adopted to your care, though. No, it doesn't.
Not necessarily.
Nope. You will learn very, very quickly the limitations of the environment. There's only so much adapting that an orchid can do. Okay, so and your seedlings.
Oh, you're personal.
Are you okay? No, I am sorry. I wish that were the case because I could then say it will adapt. Not everybody. We can't guarantee. We can't rely on the fact that it's going to adapt. Hapana. Unfortunately, I have had to eat a lot of humble pie, which is fortunate because that has no calories, but still, it's not pleasant.
Not filling either, though.
No, no. So anything you would like to add, Trish? I'm not trying to bump you off. We can have a little bit of an after.
No, but I do have a question. I need help with, and you can't really see, but hold on, let me see if I can turn it to a light here. My variegata, I have one fan and she's not doing well at all.
Okay.
She's on a mount. Right now I have it moss. It's a cork mount and I water her every day, but I'm already lost this one. She's already lost 2 more down here, this one. So I've got this one left.
All right. Is she's try again. Words are hard. Are the leaves shriveled? Do they look desiccated?
No. I mean, they're getting there. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. They're drying. They're starting to get a little wrinkly, but they're not paper yet.
Are you concerned about the fact she's not getting enough water? Oh, I love this thing. I've seen this at many orchid shows. Are you afraid? Are you concerned it's not getting enough water? Do you think the roots are shot?
I think the roots are shot on it because, like I said, since this part down here is gone, I just water this part up here where there's actually still live. Matter of fact, these leaves just fell off. This portion here.
Do you have like a cloche? Or the Americans say cloche.
I know what you were talking about. I do not, but I do have maybe a plastic bowl I can set it over it.
Maybe you can encourage it with a bit of humidity around it somehow, because I can tell you once a Tolumnia gets to that 1 fan size, it's a goner.
Yeah, it's a goner.
Yeah.
So
because
I lost the
Hawksonia.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like you said, words are hard.
Right.
I lost it practically the same way. Like it came with 4 fans and just 1 by 1. And this all happened since the end of the growing season. So during the growing season, they were doing fine.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Remember what you told me earlier, and I actually had to forget that I also told that to you. You had some healing to do. You had to focus on. And I have a feeling that the Tolumnias are one of the toughest ones if they find any form of what they consider neglect. They have absolutely no consideration for anybody else but themselves.
Well,
not that makes you feel any better, I'm sure.
No, but that makes perfect sense because she was one that didn't get much attention. So for about 4 weeks. So you're right. That I don't remember. Did I get this from Yoshi or not? I can't remember. Well, I will be replacing that one. So, all right.
Okay. So here is the rack. I know, I know,
Oh,
Michelle, that you sent me another email. Whoa, I've seen it. I'm going to grab it, but I wanted to go in order. This is what I pictured. I've seen this at a lot of orchid shows. This
I
is
like
awesome.
that.
This is awesome stuff, honestly.
Because you can actually get the clips that you can clip pots to and hang pots off of that, not just mounts.
Exactly. And okay, everybody, drum roll. And I want applause, please, in the chat, because, oh my goodness, I am so jealous. Okay. Applause.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Let me just
We need.
get it on full screen here.
Oh wow.
Can we just please take a moment here when we're talking about indoor grow space, talking about aesthetics, talking about how to make it work and make the orchids look happy. Wow. I have to say, Michelle wins tonight.
Yes.
My fabulous guest, of course. But when you see this is inspired. I love it. I absolutely love it. I hope that Michelle is still with us.
That is. See?
That is sweet. So sweet. Hey, and you can roll it around, she said. Roll it around, turn it according to light. I think everybody needs one of those in their grow space. Do they come in white? Julie's son, thank you so much. I hope that you are going to have yourself a fabulous rest of your Sunday, okay? Hand hearts to you, girl. Thank you for being here. Michelle Fucarina said, I'm giving up on Tolumnias. My prenocylum was in spike since November 20, and it just gave up. You can see it on the left. On the left. On the left. On the left. Oh, no, that's not it. Where are we going to the left? Or on the right? Have I got this the wrong way around? Right here? That doesn't look like a Tolumnia. On the left. I can't see it. I'm blind. But yeah, Tolumnias, I love my Tolumnias, but I'm losing them. I think I'm losing them. I'm not going to, and I've been cutting spikes off like no tomorrow. Just, okay, blooms, document, and move on. But yeah.
And I want more. I only have the one. Well, now I'm down to one. And she said it's
not on the triangle.
Not on the triangle.
That spike?
Oh my goodness.
That long spike? I can repaint it. You're right, Robert. Very, very true. I know where to put it. Where to put it, Marjorie, right? Okay, let me see. Left, not on the triangle thing. Let me go back. I've given them my prognosis in spike November, and it just gave up because, oh my, so that spike is, oh my goodness, Michelle. Dang. Where is that spike going? Oh my word. Yes, I can see why you're upset. That is discouraging. What a shame. Yeah, Tolumnias. They are the little mini divas with a big, big heart. Yes. Hello, Angel Bus. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. Tolumnia spikes will rebloom. Yes, do not cut them off. They can branch. Any of the nodes, just like with, let's say, a phalaenopsis spike, any of the tiny little nodes where you see a little bit of a dry kind of thing that was like a little bit of a sheath thing as the spike developed, it can all branch. And they will continue to branch around the top of the spike as well. But that is a shame. So, oh, I don't know if you saw this, Trish.
No, I did not. What am I looking at?
Michael.
Oh, that spike?
Well, yes, that's the Tolumnia spike, and it's
Oh
been
my.
spiking since November 25th, and then it just suddenly gave up.
Oh no.
Maybe it'll branch. Michelle, what do you think, huh? Let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe it's going to branch for you. But Michael's comment right here. I don't know if I want to show this because, I don't enable people.
Oh, you know what? Thank you, Michael. Yoshi. I'll be looking.
Oh, goodness me.
Oh,
Anyway.
Yoshi, if I do order some, can you hold them for me? I think you will. Okay.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, I think if I get Tolumnias again, it's going to be, I accept that I have them for a life cycle of maybe 4 or 5 years, and then that's it. I don't think that with the given current circumstances, I can't do this to little baby Tolumnias that I love so much. But we'll see what comes out. I'm hoping that in 8 weeks, things look a little different. I may have some empty baskets, but maybe some will hold on. We shall see. As long as it's green, it might branch. I would say so as well, Marjorie. Yeah. All right. If anybody else has any questions, do it right now. Scale again. No, cold. It's cold, Joshi. No more scale. They haven't had scale since I addressed them the last time. I watch them every day, and there has been no return or whatever, but it's cold. And they are a deep, deep burgundy. Michelle has got another email for us. Huh? Oh, Michelle, I think this may branch. I think this may branch, Michelle. Let me see. I don't know. Anybody have an opinion? We're back to the spike in Michelle's grow room. Look at that. The Tolumnia is down there. I hope you can see that.
If it's still green, it should spike, right?
It is still green. It's just a little bit droopy at the top. I have never seen a Tolumnia with a spike like this. Dang. And look at all the little phals on the left. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
They are so sweet. So sweet. And here is a good idea about raising your light on pots to keep them at a distance from the leaves. Just a little side note. Sorry, I am such a background snoop. I'm so sorry. Old and blind. Michael, old and blind. I shall zoom in. There we go. Okay. Can you see that, Michael? Right there. We're still going. I'll scroll down.
That's got to be at least 1.5 feet long.
It's insane.
Look
It's
at
more
that.
than. It's more than.
Yes, that's at least.
Look at that.
feet.
That is what a Tolumnia should look like. That is exactly what a Tolumnia should look like. Love it. I shall grow vicariously.
Oh,
there we go.
goodness.
And here we
Good
can see
job.
the chicken wire.
Yes.
That's awesome. And then here, and Yoshi says he will hold it for you. And then here, somewhere, is a pollinated bloom right there. Ta-da!
Oh, wow.
Ta-da! You're welcome, Michael. I just think that spike belongs in the Guinness Book of World Records for Tolumnia spikes. Dang.
That is, my goodness.
Where are you going?
It might not even be done growing. Maybe that's why it hasn't spiked yet or
Right.
bloomed out yet.
It's possible. Anything's possible. Maybe it's going down towards the light now. Maybe it's just growing down towards the light.
Yeah, because it overshot it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait, I got to go back down.
All
Me
right.
too, Rayanne. Still love the fowls too, Rayanne.
Yeah, I do too. Anything that lives, I love it. Okay, everybody. From myself and Trisha's Orchid Life, I want to say thank you so much to Trisha's Orchid Life for being so kind, for being so patient, for hanging in there with the technical issues in the beginning, insisting, persisting, and sticking with it for us. I want to say thank you so much. And also to everybody that came today, thank you for being here. Again,
Thank you.
if you think of any questions, once the video or the stream has processed, the comments are there for a reason. Bring it on. And we'll have to see which orchid environment we are going to be attacking next time, because I would like to address greenhouses. I would like to address conservatories. I would like to address alfresco. So many different options, but we shall see who is willing to be here for us in order to talk to us about it. Thank you so much. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your weekend. Your support is appreciated. The only thing that I always like to add, and I keep forgetting on live stream, is that whatever you do, make sure that you stay safe. And take care. Bye.
Guys, bye.